Hello, my name is Bettina Korick, Chief Executive of Serpentine. Together with Artistic Director Hans-Ulrich Obrist and the Serpentine team, we're delighted to welcome you to the press conference for the 20th Serpentine Pavilion. Originally planned for 2020, we could not be more excited to be able to finally gather together tomorrow in Counterspace's pavilion. Sumayya Vally, the director of Counterspace, has been working closely with the Serpentine team on creating a pavilion that listens to and reflects London. Indicative of Serpentine programming beyond the gallery walls, for the first time, the commission also includes fragments of the pavilion dispersed throughout the city, sound commissions, and our expanded summer season. We're thrilled to be presenting two outstanding exhibitions in our galleries this summer alongside the pavilion. At Serpentine North, a major survey of British Ghanaian photographer James Barner, whose career as a studio portraitist, photojournalist, and Black lifestyle photographer spans 6 decades. It stands as a record of major social and political changes in London and Accra. At Serpentine South, our 5-star exhibition by American painter Jennifer Packer, The Eye is Not Satisfied with Seeing, also continues. We're grateful to the Culture Recovery Fund for their support in helping us realize a full program of summer activities that includes sound commissions and conversations in the pavilion, family and youth programs, and the return of our Park Night series of experimental live performances. We're so excited to be here for Culture this summer and look forward to welcoming you all back to the park.
Hi everyone, welcome. The Pavilion Commission, which started 20 years ago as a showcase for international architects who have not yet built in the UK, has very much evolved to become a showcase for a younger generation of architects over recent years, from Frida Escobedo to Francis Kere to Yunya Ishigami, and now the wonderful Counterspace. Counterspace is a Johannesburg-based collaborative architectural studio led by Sumayya Vally, whom you will hear from shortly, here in this program. Counterspace is inspired by its location, Johannesburg, and is committed to developing design expression, particularly for the continent, through design research, publishing, pedagogy, built objects, buildings, and other forms of architecture. Sumayya is in love with Johannesburg. It serves as her laboratory in a way for finding histories, for finding futures, archaeologies, and also different design languages, with the intent always to reveal the invisible, to make the invisible visible. Sumayya's work is often forensic. It draws on performance, the supernatural, the wayward, and also the overlooked as a generative place of history and work. Sumayya's design and research is committed to finding expression for hybrid identities and contested territories. Why did we choose Counterspace for this commission? Counterspace demonstrates a unique approach to architecture, one that starts with and foregrounds people, their needs, and also always the local context. The practice really extends the boundaries of what architecture is, which is at the heart of these architecture commissions here at the Serpentine. We have been following the practice of Counterspace for a few years, and we're interested in how it uses research and archives to bring to the surface untold and silent stories through architecture. In Sumayya's own words, she says, "I believe that it's my life's work to bring different narratives into the world through architecture, to bring forward other histories and other futures that have too long been ignored." She describes also coming to architecture through the city and through fiction. Another quote, "I've always had an interest in finding and creating worlds and in seeing what I truly consider architecture, the fabric of the city, as interesting starting points from which to imagine new worlds. It's very gradual, but I always had this desire to work in the city and to have a practice that brings together different parts of the city into the same world." End of quote. This approach is so very evident in this commission here at the Serpentine through the addition of fragments of the pavilion placed throughout the city, and also the sound commissions that you will be able to listen to when you're inside the structure. Sound commissions by artists Ian Bailey and Jane Bernard, sound commissions by Brian Eno and Turquoise Dyson. Indeed, the forms in the pavilion are all inspired by everyday rituals of gathering, everyday forms of resistance and being in a city, from street fairs and restaurants to moments of street performance. We are so excited to launch the fellowship program, Support Structures for Support Structures, developed by Sumayya together with the Serpentine civic team. To quote Sumayya again, I find the culture and urban diversity in London ecstatically interesting. It's a sum of so many histories. It's a living record of where we've come from and a constantly evolving renegotiation and reimagining of the current moment. London can be read as a microcosm of much larger global phenomenon that's more relevant than ever. As you all can imagine, it takes a village to build such a pavilion, so we are grateful to so many people. The pavilion could not be realized without the support of many individuals and companies, too many to mention here. But you will see them all towards the end of this film. I wanted to thank the advisors of this year's pavilion, architect Sir David Adjei and Professor Leslie Loco, our long-standing technical consultant David Glover, with whom we made the selection. We are hugely grateful to our headline partner Goldman Sachs for 7 years of continued support of this annual commission, as well as our supporting partner Therme Group for their support of the Serpentine Pavilion Commission for a 3rd year. The expertise and advice of Michael Bloomberg, chairman of the Serpentine Board of Trustees, is crucial to the success of this project. We also thank our technical advisors, AECOM. Their continued expertise is fundamental to the realization of this commission. Thanks also go to Stage 1, who work closely with the architects and the Serpentine each year to construct the pavilion. I also want to make very special thanks to our incredible curatorial team, Yezomi Omolu, Natalia Grabowska, Amal Khalaf and Joe Payton, and to Julie Burnell, Head of Construction and Buildings, who has overseen 14 pavilions to date, and whose dedication to the project is fundamental to the completion of each commission. Thank you all so much.
I am Sumayya Vally, architect of this year's Serpentine Pavilion. If shelter is the most basic unit of architecture, then safety, belonging, and the idea of home are at the core of humanity's impulse to build. Everywhere the ground is moving, and we construct connections and disconnections between things. As the heart of a once global industrial empire, London is one of the most densely layered centers on Earth. New arrivals can feel this movement intuitively and engage in grounding practices. Home is how we locate ourselves, and as much as it extends beyond us, we carry home within us in our rituals of gathering and grounding. The 2021 Serpentine Pavilion is a response to and a celebration of this tapestry of stories and voices, a listening to places that have been integral to the construction of home for people in London. Among others, the British Mosque in London, for example, or the Centerprise Publishing House, or the Four Aces Club, which was the first public venue to play black music in London, markets, local grocers and stores, places of worship in neighborhoods with histories and presences of migration, everyday places of belonging and of resistance. One of the most integral parts of this pavilion has been to extend the ethos of the pavilion at different scales and in different realms, to bring voices across time and geographies into dialogue. Conceptually, the pavilion is conceived in 5 pieces. These pieces take place all over London. Each fragment is a small public offering, a shelf, a stage, a seat, a podium, and a table. A shelf at New Beacon Books holds in its form traces of surrounding streets. It houses literature from the African diaspora and is a space for a person to sit and read in solitude or to an intimate audience. A stage for the tabernacle draws on its continued celebration of song, sound, and street food. A seat at the Albany is an offering of rest, meeting, and organizing. A podium at the Valence House Library draws on the legacy of the Serpentine civic team's collaboration in Barking and Dagenham, and will be home to a radio station, which is also a very important form of public space, and its listening sessions due to launch in September this year. If diaspora is the flow, then there is also an ebb, a coming together of places and times. The structure in Kensington Gardens draws together stories and traces of places and gatherings which have carried communities. Physically, this pavilion is a set of structures, surfaces, and spaces drawn from many gatherings in Tower Hamlets, Edgware Road, Notting Hill, Brixton, Hoxton, Hackney, and Peckham, to name but a few. spaces across which we can gather to share and to differ. Across the summer, through listening to the city, voices from across London are brought to the pavilion in the form of sound commissions with the Serpentine civic and education teams and the artists Jay Bernard, Ian Bailey and the Valence House Library. As a longer-term legacy of the pavilion and building on the work of the Serpentine civic team, Support Structures for Support Structures is a fellowship which will work to seed and support alternative structures. Through it, we hope to support London-based cultural producers working at the intersections of art and social justice, art and ecology, and art and the archive. I am honoured by the commitment of the Serpentine to this project, which will truly give us the opportunity to expand the reach of the pavilion beyond its physical lifespan, and which points directly to our collective role and the responsibility that architects have in working towards systemic change. The making of a building does not end with the completion of construction. Building is also a verb, and it is through living, breathing, and sharing space that building is continuously completed. I hope that you will go to this pavilion, that you will visit all of its various homes across the city, that you will get to know of or meet some of the voices that have shaped it, that you will gather in it, and in doing so, that you will remember, honor, and build with us there.
My name is David Ajay. I'm a trustee of the Serpentine. I'm an architect, and I specifically serve on the jury to select the architect for the pavilion every year, and I've been doing it for the last 3 years. Counterspace, who were chosen for the 2020 pavilion, which is now obviously opening in 2021, were chosen after a rigorous discussion about the direction of the pavilion and the opportunities that it was offering to emerging generations. And it was felt, looking at the sort of wide scope of proposals that came in, that it seemed like this was a window for somebody from a sort of much younger generation, the emerging generation, to have voice. Counterspace's proposals, Sumayya Vally, who's the lead of that team, proposed a very compelling idea of what the pavilion could be and how it could evolve that seemed to have a different kind of voice. And it was so compelling to me and the team that we felt that it was only right to give her a chance to really demonstrate to the world her compelling vision. So Counterspace's pavilion really offers, for me and for the Serpentine, I think, a new evolution of the traditional Serpentine theme of making a structure. This pavilion seems to hearken on to many issues that I think are at the sort of heart of contemporary practice. How to deal with sort of memory within the city. It's in a way a sort of monument to different communities and times. It is a monument to London, which is the first time a pavilion really takes the city on as an idea in itself. And she's also very interested in bringing to the center disparate groups. The pavilion is reaching out and doing a lot of outreach to communities where the sense of the pavilion being a London phenomenon and celebrating the diversity and the richness of London culture, its sort of multiple cultures, is being sort of brought to the center. So, for instance, something that I think is a striking innovation is this idea that fragments of the pavilion are going to be in different parts of London, to allow different parts of London to engage with the pavilion without necessarily coming to the Serpentine. But last but not least, the sort of incredible sort of inventive power, her architectural thinking, of being able to look to the past, but to be able to recycle the past and to completely configure something new from fragments of the past, which I think is really the power of the architectural innovation at the heart of the project that she's trying to make. So the pavilion is on the 20th anniversary of the sort of beginning of the pavilion series, which is a very important threshold. I've now been 20 pavilions, and this is a kind of momentous moment for the Serpentine to be able to celebrate this. And it also seems like an appropriate time to also have this new direction and to have this new way of thinking. I think the thinking that Sumayya and Counterspace have brought to the opportunity of the pavilion also has allowed us to really think very loudly about sort of collaborators that could happen in the future, what Counterspace have offered in the widening of the opportunity of how to make architecture and how to use the pavilion as a site for new minds to come to London to explore with the city and with its residents new ideas about architecture and the built environment.
Hi, my name is Yesomi Molu and I'm the Director of Curatorial Affairs and Public Practice here at the Serpentine. I'm thrilled to be able to welcome you to the Serpentine Pavilion designed by Counterspace and to share with you the amazing work that we've been doing collaborating with Sumayya Vally and our team here at the Serpentine on a variety of activities and programs that take the pavilion out into the City of London. We're very proud of this collaboration as it speaks to the Serpentine's ongoing commitment to outreach and engagement, working with various communities across the city, as well as working with artists to present a series of sound commissions that you'll be able to experience as part of your time at the Serpentine Pavilion.
I'm Amal Khalaf and I'm the Civic Curator here at the Serpentine. We have been working really closely with Sumayya to think about ways to expand the reach of the pavilion back into London. Our role at the Serpentine is to develop collaborations between artists and different communities across the city to develop art projects that have a social impact, that address different social urgencies, from migrant justice to housing rights. So we've been working with Sumayya to think about ways that we can extend the legacy of her pavilion, ways to bring these questions of how we gather, how we can intervene in our city and make a change as artists, as people wanting to work collectively and work collaboratively with communities to make an impact, how we can sustain these practices that are often not supported by mainstream institutions and are often not given enough support either financially or even in terms of developing knowledge or language around what this kind of work means and is. We're really, really excited that as part of this work and legacy of the pavilion, we're going to be inaugurating the first ever fellowship here at the Serpentine. The fellowship is called Support Structures for Support Structures, and it is going to be a 9-month program that will support artists and collectives that have been working in community, whose work is about holding spaces for people all over the city to bridge a gap between spatial politics, community practice, and art practice. We recognize that there are many artists doing the work already, and there aren't that many institutions or structures and systems that are holding and supporting this kind of work. So over the next 9 months, we'll be supporting up to 10 artists and collectives with unrestricted grants of around £10,000, as well as supporting them through workshops and hosting conversations and gatherings where we're going to really think about what are the needs of artists that are really committed to doing work in communities, and what kind of systems and structures we can develop together. And they'll be thinking with us to develop the future of this program, so we can start to think about how arts institutions can better support work that's really impacting the city we live in.
My name is Miko Gutovic. I'm the CEO and curator of TIME Art and vice president of TIME Group. And on behalf of everyone at TIME, I'd like to say how proud we are to support another year of the Serpentine Pavilion program through the acquisition of this year's pavilion. This year's commission, which has been designed by Counterspace Studio, led by Sumayya Vally, makes its mark in Kensington Gardens with a very important message at a very important time in modern history. After an extended period of global isolation and in the midst of the ongoing challenges we continue to face as a global community, Counterspace's solution for the pavilion comes as a beacon of light, bringing us back to a sense of community, identity, belonging and gathering. These are the fundamental pillars of a healthy society and what we must cherish and preserve as we rethink and reshape the way we live and interact as a global community. At Therme Art, we strongly believe in the power of art and architecture to create, change, and enhance our way of living, one that embraces diversity, sustainability, and cohabitation. And for a third year in a row, our partnership with the Serpentine in support of this fantastic architectural program reaffirms our shared values and the natural synergies that emerge between both our institutions. We are truly inspired by Sumayya Vally's vision and look forward to seeing the pavilion come to life across London's neighborhoods over the summer.